few seconds.
Okay.
We are live. Yeah, you can start.
Okay. Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on automated processes for business rescue and related matters. I'm Alma Pinkham, and I'm from the Corporate Education Unit of CIPC. We hope you will find today's presentations interesting and will gain new knowledge about business rescue. And we want to ask, if you have any questions, please type your questions in. It's about the topic only, not other matters, but type your questions in the comments on Facebook or YouTube. We will try and answer as many questions as possible afterwards. The broadcast will be recorded, and as soon as the recording is available, it will be posted on the CIPC website along with the presentations. The recording will also remain on Facebook and YouTube. If I can ask you, Zoe, can you just forward to the next slide, please? The program for today, I'll just give a very short introduction. I know many people know CIPC very well, but there's always people who have never dealt with us and who don't know what we're responsible for. So we always like to just inform people. After that, Christa Klauko, the Senior Manager at Companies and CC's unit, will speak about the automated business rescue proceedings, followed by Vuyani Nkogla, Senior Manager for Directors, Members and Practitioners. He will speak about the accreditation of profession and licensing of business rescue practitioners. And then there will be some questions we will answer and then close the program. Thank you. Next slide. About CIPC, we were brought into existence by the Companies Act of 2008. In terms of Section 1851 of the Companies Act, the Commission is established as a juristic person to function as an organ of state within the public administration, but as an institution outside of a public service. On the left is a little picture just to show that CIPC have two main legs. On the one side is the business registration and corporate regulation units, which includes the matters regarding companies, cooperatives, and CCs. In the other leg, we've got the intellectual property, which deals with the services for patents, designs, trademarks, and copyright. Our objectives in terms of the Companies Act is to register companies, cooperatives, and intellectual property rights, and to maintain the records that we've registered, then to do disclosure of information on its registers, enforcement of the relevant legislation, monitoring compliance with and the contravention of financial reporting standards, and making recommendations thereto, licensing of business rescue practitioners, and the promotion of education and awareness of the companies and intellectual property law. Thank you. Just as a short introduction before I hand over to Christa Klauko, since CIPC was established 10 years ago, it has introduced a number of service channels or platforms to provide customers the option to choose a channel that is best suited to their needs, as well as to improve and fast-track service delivery. To improve our service delivery, outdated channels are discontinued, while new channels are introduced to replace the old channels. New e-services is a new channel that will be replacing the e-services system that has been in operation for a number of years. Services are released in phases, so it's happening over a time. And the first services which have been released on new e-services were name reservation, private company registration, and primary cooperative registration. On 8 June 2021, processes were released for business rescue proceedings, business rescue practitioner licensing, and business rescue practitioner appointments. With this, I would like to hand over to Christa Klauko. Thank you, Christa.
Sorry. My apologies, just hold. My apologies for that. Alma, thank you very much for the kind introductions and just a high-level overview. Yes, it's 10 years since the new Act came about, and with the introduction of the new Companies Act, it also brought about the introduction of a mechanism in order to try to save businesses in our economy, save livelihoods and business opportunities. So it's actually fitting that we're automating business rescue proceedings on the 10-year anniversary of the Companies Act. The scope for me today is I'm going to talk you through onto the changes that was brought about on the automation of business rescue proceedings. Thereafter, I will hand over to my colleague, Ms. Nkotla, that will deal with the appointment and licensing of the practitioners. Just a note, I'm not going to go through the Act regarding business rescue and all the processes and what the law requires. The scope from my side is to indicate how the new e-service functionality for business proceedings works and what is required. So it's a very, very much a practical guide on what to do and why things were set into the system. If you want to go back and have a refresher as to what is business rescue, we did a presentation, I think, earlier this year regarding business rescue, whereby we provided an overview of the documentation and the steps in the whole life cycle of business rescue. So you can gladly refer to that. Just for an introductory, I always like to take us back to the mandate and the function and the purpose relating to our business services. In terms of Chapter 1 of the Companies Act, one of the purposes of the Act is to provide for the efficient and responsible rescue and recovery of financially distressed companies. As you can see, I highlighted and underlined efficient. After 10 years of business rescue proceedings and how you file via a mailbox, it became so cluttered that we were unable to efficiently able to process business rescue applications. The reason being is that everybody loves a mailbox, everybody loves an email address, so we get it copied left, right, and center of all proceedings, which makes it very difficult in order to go dig dive in order to get the applications in order to process them in time. I have to take my hands off to the business rescue proceedings team, considering the difficulties in the mailbox. They're actually quite efficient in identifying the applications and trying to process them timeously. So I take my hands off to the team. Next slide, Rizani. Again, just a little bit of an intro about the functions regarding business rescue. It's the processing of the applications. It is the accreditation of professional bodies. It's the licensing of individuals. It's the monitoring of patterns of compliance, promotion of business rescue, and then also we've got an advisory and an awareness role. That's why we're having this webinar. Right, just again, the high level life cycle of a business rescue. You start the proceedings, the practitioner gets appointed, he does an assessment of the entity's affairs, he makes a call whether it's financially distressed, it qualifies for business rescue. He then proceeds in this in engagements with all the different role players, develop the business rescue plan. He then implements the plan, and then after the implementation of the plan, he submits a substantial implementation. And my apologies for the ladies out there, he will also refer to as she. Right, so the scope of the release on business rescue proceedings was the first little leg, the starting of the business rescue proceedings and the appointment of the practitioner. So the session today will focus on that. Within the next modules of release, we will start including the notice of termination, the notice of substantial implementation, court orders for the discontinuation of the business rescue proceedings and commencement of liquidation, and then notification regarding nullities and reporting. So those will come through in next phases. But so for now, those matters listed there can still go to the relevant mailboxes, but the matters commencing business rescue, the court orders, the core 123.1s needs to go to new e-services. Thank you, Ridzani. As I stated, this is a practical guidance webinar from my side. So first question that we always get asked on any new channel that we have is, who can submit the documentation? So any person can submit as long as they are a registered customer for new e-services. Just note that if you are an existing customer on any of our other platforms, you will be required to re-register or to refresh your registration via the new e-services functionality. There is a lot more validations as well and changes and how do we record customer information on the new e-services. So please go through that. At the bottom of the screen, you will see where to find the step-by-step guide on how to register a customer as a customer on the new e-services site. Now, the next question is, if anybody can access the system, how do we control that it's not unauthorized filings? So we've built in requirements onto the application itself. So, and also, for example, we will have to validate the directives relating to the enterprise. So you will not have the ID number, for example, necessarily of the person, and that person must be an active director or member of the company for which business rescue is being filed. Also, a whole bunch of documentation are still required to be uploaded in order for back office to validate. We do check those documentation, and if there's any anomalies, we will reject it. Next slide, Ridzani. All right, so what can be submitted via the new e-services? Please note it's for business rescue. It's not for the others that has been released. It's the core 123.1, which is the resolution of the board of directors if a company or members to commence business rescue, or court orders commencing business rescue. As from this morning, we have got 4 matters that came through the new system, core 123.1s. We have not yet received court orders yet, so interesting enough. All right, submitting a core 123.1. Next slide, Ridzani. All right. So you will only be allowed to submit the core 123.1 if the enterprise status is in business or annual return deregistration. If there's any other status, that the reason for such status must be addressed. For example, let's say the company is already in liquidation. Of course, in that case, you will have to upload a court order in order to bypass the liquidation, not bypass the liquidation status, but to be allowed to submit. So let's say, for example, there's a conversion status. We quite get it a lot where people submit business rescue for a CC. When we check our records, the CC was converted to a company and we have to reject. You have to file for the company. So address those reasons. And if you're uncertain as to what the reasons are, please log a ticket for us via our online inquiry system. A team member will gladly assist you and to check what is going on and advise you accordingly. So the only enterprises that is allowed to submit is only private companies, public, state-owned, incorporated, not-for-profit and closed corporations can submit business rescue in terms of Chapter 6 of the Companies Act. External companies are explicitly excluded, as well as cooperatives. Next slide. So what will happen, we have got the authority in terms of the Companies Act to take any actual physical form and then convert it onto an online form. So we've taken the core 123.1. We did have a little bit of adjusted it based on our needs. So the screen that you will display is basically the form that you need to capture. So you don't have to submit the actual core 123.1 that has been signed. It's already accommodated on the screens. What we also have done is some of those for you that have already submitted before business rescue, you'll note there's a place as a signature on the 123 at the bottom. Please note that in terms of our publications in the Government Gazette, which in this case was done in 2006 already, the Government Gazette publication, we are authorized. A signature can be the logon details, a customer code logon. So we regard the customer code with which was logged on for the new e-services as the signature on the document. Right. The electronic form also includes the following: the validation of directors and members with the Department of Home Affairs. We get a lot of deceased people trying to register as directors or wrong ID numbers. So this is as a validation in order to make sure that we get active information into our system. We have already had clients that says, but it doesn't want to take. You need to submit the name and the surname and the item precisely as per the ID document. You can't just say, if your name is Christina Wilhelmina, then you have to type in Christina Wilhelmina. You can't just say Christa, Christina, or Chrissy, or whatever variance there is. It must be identical to the ID documentation. Also, the director's information that needs to be validated is the director or member who has deposed the sworn statement. Then the other thing, we also validate that the resolution date is not longer than, it's not older than 5 days. So please note that we have built that validation in. You will not be able to file if your resolution date is longer than 5 days. Again, it's a condition stated within the Companies Act, Section 129, that the resolution must be filed and all the notifications must be sent and the appointment of the practitioner must happen within 5 days of the date of the resolution. So we've built that in. Then also you will be required to upload some documentation. You will be required to upload the sworn statement as well as the resolution. Please note that we do check these documentation. We've got a strict check guide at the back end to make sure that these documentation are legally compliant. Not to pick on any customers. For example, yesterday afternoon we had to reject an application because the sworn statement was signed, but we could not positively identify the Commissioner of Oaths. The person's name was not there, the designation was not there, and the address of where to find the Commissioner of Oaths. Please note that is a legal requirement in terms of the Commissioner of Oaths legislation, that a Commissioner of Oaths and anybody certifying a document must be clearly traceable and identifiable. Then also, those that have submitted and those that will go look onto it, we also now provide for the filing of statistical or reporting information. I know that there's a big interest in business rescue, and over the last couple of years, we've built reporting whereby different institutions wants to know what industries, what provinces, what towns these proceedings come in. Under the current format, we go monthly or every 2 months. We go back to every single application that we've got and hand capture that into an Excel spreadsheet. It's an extremely tedious task. So we've now automated it that you will be required to submit that. Your industry will be defined as the SIC code 7 converter from SARS. There is a drop-down list for it, and then you've got a free type option to actually classify the sub-industry. The main place of business, that's also in terms of the Wedgwood case, for those that have got a little bit more legal background. Although in terms of the Wedgwood case clearly states that your main place of business is where the bulk of your administration takes place. So let's say, for example, you've got a head office in Sandton, but you've got a small factory for the, not a factory or warehouse that receives goods from the Durban port. Your main administration actually occurs in Sandton. So in terms of this, your main place of business will then be Sandton. And then, of course, your PI score. The PI score is used for 2 purposes. It's to make sure that we appoint a practitioner that is suitable. We don't want to appoint a junior practitioner for a big company that has got a PI score of 11,000. There are more complex matters and therefore need a practitioner with more experience. The second one for the PI score that we haven't quite built in yet, and we're going to do now with this system, is we want to trace the amount of jobs that was saved through the process. So you'll capture the PI score, which one of the questions is how many employees. And when you submit your substantial, when we release that component, you'll be required to what's the PI score at the end of the proceedings. Then we can measure how much jobs was shed during the process, and we can have some better idea of what's going on. The system was actually released on the 15th of June, Alma, not the 8th as your beautiful introduction state. We had a few hiccups, so we apologize for that. So the official launch date is the 15th. Next slide, Ridzani. All right, so you will be submitting the complete electronic form. Just Ridzani, my apologies. Just go back one. Okay, my apologies. I accidentally dropped a slide. Just a question on court orders. Court orders will also follow the same trend of information. The only thing is that in terms of the court order, you will upload your court order and your PI score will not be mandatory because it's usually a third party that approaches the court and therefore may not necessarily have the relevant detail in order to provide the PI score. So you will then complete the electronic form, you will upload the required documentation, and then you will submit. If there is any validation error, the system will not allow you to proceed or give you a little message to say that your application has been successful and give you a reference number. In that case, it will either state to you what validation failed, or you can go up into the application and look for the areas highlighted in red. You can correct it and then resubmit and submit it again. Once you have successfully submitted and the system has given you a reference number, an email will be sent to the customer who submitted the business rescue application to say that we've received your documentation and matters are now being referred to the back office. Please note that business rescue proceedings itself, unless it's a court order, does not commence upon you submitting it via the portal. In terms of the definition of filing, we still have to confirm that your documents are legally compliant. So you will have to wait until we issue you with a confirmation letter confirming that business rescue has commenced. The letter will also state the effective date of the proceeding. Ridzani, please move to submitting a Core 123.1 or court order. One more slide. Right, that I've already discussed. Next slide. Thank you very much. All right. For those, as I indicate, I'm giving you a high level. We have prepared a detailed step-by-step guide, which you can access from those links in order to see per screenshot how the system functions and work. All right, next slide. All right, some of the matters I've already touched upon. Again, once you have submitted, it will go to the back office team that will examine the uploaded documents for legal and procedural requirements. If it is incorrect, we will then reject your application for rework. Rework is the term that is used on the new e-services system. It's basically for you to correct the application. Again, you will receive an email to notify you that it failed or was rejected and with the reason as to why. The way that you correct it, you go back onto the new e-services system. You click on, you will be displayed with a list of items that you've submitted. You click on the one that you want to view. You click on view, and then it will open up the entire application again, and then you can address whatever shortcoming there was. Then you submit again. It will go back to the back office, who will then re-look at the entire application from end to end. So once we are happy and we have examined and quality assured the application and we confirmed it, you will again receive an email notification to say that the application was successfully processed, as well as a confirmation letter with a web disclosure. Once you have received that, you need to continue to appoint the business rescue practitioner in terms of section 129, as well as inform all the affected parties in terms of those sections. Next slide. I see that we're also running out of time. I've exceeded my 20 minutes, or allocated 20 minutes. Just quickly hold up. My apologies. I just want to ask with the coordinator if I can have another 5 minutes just to run through the content of the doc. She confirmed. She nodded. How nice is she? All right, so I'm now going to proceed to go through some high-level information that needs to be in your documentation. As I stated, with digging out the applications, we have also picked up that the quality of the type of document submitted was not necessarily up to scratch. So with the new system, we actually got the time to go look and make sure that everything, the uploaded document, is legally compliant or procedurally compliant. So we're going to start with the sworn statement. We need the full name, surname, and ID number of the deponent, right? It must be the active director or member of the CC, and remember they are being validated on the front end. The sworn statement must please indicate the reasons for the resolution to start the business rescue proceedings. What caused the financial distress? Please don't put a one-line say cash flow problems. Remember, this document you are going to forward to your affected parties, and they will have to make legal decisions regarding their rights on this documentation. So rather have more detail than very, very one-liners. So for example, in the cash flow, please indicate what caused the cash flow, what contracts, for example, has failed. I see a lot of the practitioners who help the drafting of the statements do it very nicely. They will actually go on say, especially now in the COVID, we have picked up, they will say what was the conditions before COVID that put the company into distress, and how COVID has actually exacerbated these conditions in order for them to file. So please, more detail on those. Also, you need to indicate what is the plan to recover the business or for it become a going concern again. You can't say, Hail Mary, business rescue is going to save the business. What do you aim to do during the proceedings? Remember, this is just an indication. Your practitioner will actually, once it's appointed and doing all of his assessment, will then go through and develop and fine-tune any plan. They are the experts. They know these things far better. We acknowledge that. But you as a business owner need to have an idea what you want to achieve through business rescue. Again, you must also state whether there's any legal proceedings that the entity is involved in. Please be honest. We got a complaint again of summary judgment against a company that was issued before it was actually being placed into business rescue. Please be upfront with it. Honesty is the best option. Right? Again, it also must be deposed by a commissioner of oaths, and the commissioner must please be identifiable and traceable. Right. Just again, if you are in liquidation, please note that you have to go to court in order to set aside or discontinue the liquidation and in order to commence business rescue. Right. Content of the resolution. Next slide, Radzani. Again, the full name and registration number of the entity. Remember, these are form part of the corporate documents for the entity, and you must keep a record of all the decisions made. So ideally, the Act actually states that it needs to be numbered in sequential order. In my 15 years in CIPC, I actually have not seen a resolution that is sequentially numbered. So full name and registration number of the entity, the date the resolution occurred, the place the decision was taken, and the phrases must be in there. It is financially distressed and there's a reasonable prospect to rescue. If the phrases are not there, we are going to reject it. Remember, these two phrases are the conditions for commencement of business rescue. Then the resolution must be approved by the majority, which is 51 plus 1, or higher if the MOI states a higher resolution threshold of all active directors and members. They must sign. Alternatively, if the chairperson signs the resolution, it's also fine, but it must clearly state that the chairperson is authorizing that all legal compliance have been met. It cannot be a shareholder's resolution. It is only a director's resolution. And of course, your resolution can be done physically or by electronic means, for example, round robin. Right. Conditions for a court order. Resolution may not be adopted if liquidation proceedings have been initiated by or against the company. Thus, no application should have been made to a court for the liquidation of the company. If so, it is void. Next slide, Radzani. Just quickly a run through regarding the effects of business rescue. Remember, there's a general moratorium that kicks in. Remember that the general moratorium does not kick in when you submit. It's after we have confirmed the legal compliance. There's a protection of property rights. Employees of the entity at the time of BR continue to be employed. There is certain exemptions. BRP may suspend any obligation of the entity for the duration of the BR. Again, there's exceptions, and the effect on shareholders and directors. Legal consequences. Next slide, Rotani. Effective date of commencement will be the date upon which complete application was submitted via New East Services, which will be the first submission date, or if rejected for rework, the date the corrected information was submitted. So meaning here, we will assign the effective date if you submitted yesterday and we rejected it yesterday because the sworn statement or the resolution was not legally compliant, and you resubmit today, your effective date will then be assigned for today once we have confirmed everything in order. It will not be yesterday when the initial submission came in. If proceeding liquidation proceedings, then the resolution to commence business rescue is void. If resolution and effective date not published within stated period, then the proceedings becomes a nullity. In that case, for now, please, if it does become a nullity, practitioners, please just send us the email via the business rescue mailbox and we'll pick it up from there for now. If practitioner is not appointed within 5 days, the system will automatically then place it back into business. We have automated that component, so you don't have to necessarily notify us of that. If the BR proceedings become a nullity due to any of the above, then the entity may not file any further resolution to begin business rescue for 3 months. Please note this has been built in. With the manual system that we had, it was not always possible to check this, but now with the automated system, this becomes possible. A nullity. Next slide. Thank you, Rotani. If proceedings became a nullity, a letter from the BRP stating the reasons for the nullity. Again, for now, it needs to go to business rescue. Possible reasons for a nullity: the BRP not appointed within the required or extended time periods, there was not publication notification or the appointment of the BRP, not all the affected parties were notified, or at the time of the resolution there was liquidation proceedings that has been initiated. Again, I'm not going to go through the consequences. We've discussed that in the previous slide. So that is the nuts and bolts and the high level regarding the new automated version of business rescue proceedings. I hope that this will actually ease your administration on your side when you actually engage with us on this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Then I'm handing over to Vuyani.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm waiting for Rosanne to share a presentation. I am not going to bore with many details because the principle is the same when it comes to the issues pertaining to filing. It means the same. So if the requirements for filing are not met, that does not mean then it is filed. The filing is not just the mere submission, but it is the compliance in the form and manner that is required. Thank you, Rotsani. My name is Vuyani Ngosha, responsible for the licensing of business rescue practitioners, as well as the appointment of business rescue practitioners by companies, together with the accreditation of professional bodies, amongst other things. Can we go to the next slide, please? I think the purpose of this presentation is just to share some light in terms of our role with regards to what I have highlighted, the licensing as well as the business rescue practitioner. that is appointed to a company that is in business rescue, as Krista has explained. So these are the legislative frameworks that we're working from, particularly Chapter 6 of the Companies Act. That is where our focus is at. Though when we are to look in terms of the Companies Act, it must be read in totality, like any other piece of legislation. Next. Just as a background then, Section 138 of the Companies Act gives us the qualification of the business rescue practitioner, and it states that it must be a person, the company may appoint a person as a business rescue practitioner who is a member in good standing of a legal, accounting, or business management profession accredited by the Commission. Meaning that the company cannot appoint a business rescue practitioner that is yet to be licensed. The company may not appoint a business rescue practitioner that is yet to become a member of a professional body. So a person must already be a member of a professional body in good standing. And the professional bodies that are in good standing, you will see them. There is a slide where we highlighted all the professional bodies that are already accredited. And this person must already has been issued with the license to function as a business rescue practitioner. And the license must not be either under suspension or revoked, but it must be an active license. And our licenses, they have a time frame of 3 years. Therefore, it must be still active, not an expired license. And the person must not be then subject to probation in terms of Section 162, subsection 7, and not disqualified from acting as a director in terms of Section 69. And it does not have any relationship with the company that will then be seen as if the person will be biased in conducting his work. So there must be a level of integrity, impartiality, and objectivity to the business rescue practitioner. And the person must not be related to anyone who has a relationship with the company. Next. Next slide. Thank you. So when it comes to the accreditation and the licensing, then we derive our authority from Regulation 126. And as a result of that, then we started with the accreditation model. Before that, in 2017, people were just licensed as individuals without them belonging to a professional body, and others probably were belonging. And we received then a sort of a legal advice that says that the requirements of Section 138, they are not the requirements that we can choose from, but these are the requirements that are mandatory, that business rescue practitioner must flow from that. Hence, then we began to accredit professional bodies. And we have 11 currently, and we also issue our licenses in terms of also looking in terms of Section 138 as well as Regulation 127 in terms of classification and so forth. And we'll talk to that later on. We can move to the next slide. This is the list of the accredited professional bodies we have. They're not in any order. So you have IAC, which is an Institute of Accounting and Commerce, CIPA, which is South African Institute of Professional Accountants. We have CIPA, which is South African Institute of Business Accountants. We have SAICA, which is South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. We have ACCA, the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. We have IBASA, which is the Institute of Business Advisors. We have CIMA, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. We have TMA, the Turnaround Management Association. We We have SARIPA, the South African Restructuring and Insolvency Practitioners Association. We have LPC, which is the Legal Practice Council. And last but not least, we have IMCSA, which is the Institute of Management Consultants and Masters Coaches of South Africa. So a person that is to be appointed must come from one of these professional bodies, and the practitioner cannot be licensed under 2 or more, but as a business registered practitioner, but can only be licensed under one a professional body, though that the person can be a member of various professional bodies. Now, the appointment, then it says, within 5 days after the company has adopted and filed the resolution, or such a time as the commission on application, the company must appoint a business rescue practitioner. Therefore, it says, after you have followed the process that Krista alluded to, then within 5 days, there must be then an appointment of the business rescue practitioner. And it is clear then that the practitioner that is to be appointed in terms of section 129 is a person that satisfies the requirements of 138, which as I highlighted above. And also this person has consented in writing to accept the appointment. Therefore, you cannot have the acceptance of appointment. For an example, you can have a resolution to appoint taken on the 10th, and then you have the acceptance done on the 15th. You can't appoint before the acceptance. Therefore, it is very critical that a person that is appointed is the person that has accepted in writing to his appointment. And then after then the appointment has been made, then it says within 2 days, then the company must file the appointment of the practitioner within 2 business days. Therefore, it means that you will have that 5 days and 2 days for appointment. However, it does not mean that you cannot do everything at the same time, but you only have a leeway of these 7 days that are highlighted here. And then this is then we normally use to stamp this form, for an example, to those that are still pending applications in terms of the old system. That form then will be just stamped. But in terms of the new system now, what you'll do, you will submit, as Krista has mentioned, we have an e-services. Therefore, you go to a system, and on the system, instead of going to the practitioners, instead of going to the proceedings, you'll go to the appointments, and you'll do then the appointment of the practitioner, or you will go to the licensing if you want to license. Now, who can do the appointment and who can apply for licensing? Let me start with licensing. It is only the person that wants to be licensed that can apply for licensing. So you cannot apply on behalf of another person for licensing. It is the person that requires a license that can apply for licensing. But when it comes to then the appointment of the practitioner to a company, the person that can do the appointment or file the appointment is the person that filed for the proceedings. So the very same person that did the proceedings, because it will lie in his or her profile, and then from there we'll be able to pick it up from that particular profile. Now, it is very critical for us to know the people that are filing. Hence now, Krista mentioned that people will be requested on e-services, new e-services, to sort of re-register. The reason for this is that Regulation 168 makes it clear that the recording officer, which is the person from CIPC, must take reasonable steps to confirm the identity of any person filing a document with us. Now, what is happening there is that when you do that re-registration, we confirm your information with Home Affairs, so that we take reasonable steps, so that we know exactly the person that we are filing with. We've seen in the past that people will create customer codes, and they will give us wrong ID numbers, Others, they will even give us the wrong addresses. Others, they pretended to be staying in our offices and they will give us the CIPC address. So now we'll do a thorough check from people who are filing with us. And when it comes to the appointment, if the proceedings, if they are done in terms of court, it's the same process, but then the appointment, as Krista has said, will take effect based on the court order that is filed, and the process is still the same. Next slide. Right. I just want to share with you, I think in the past we have been seeing some different views in terms of the powers of the practitioner, and others, they were of the view that the practitioner sort of substitutes the board, and the board becomes powerless when the company is in business rescue. And it was in this case that then the learned judge made it clear that we must distinguish between the management control that the practitioner has and the powers that are vested to the board by virtue of the section 66 and other sections that are relating to the board. And it was clear that the appointment of practitioners, it is a governance matter, it is not a management matter. And I think the judge made it clear that though the word management is not defined, however, the Act clearly distinguishes between the management as well as the board. So these are two different groupings. So you'll have your management, which is your executives, and then you'll have your board. And the board still then has the powers that are given to it, and the board therefore still functions. And therefore we need then to read those section 137, 139, as well as 140 together, and the entire Companies Act. So the board is the one, because the appointment of the practitioner is the responsibility of the company, and the board then appoints the practitioner. And it does not mean now that when the practitioner comes in can appoint other practitioners, and the board or the board will require the endorsement of the practitioner when the board wants to appoint another practitioner. Let's move. Right. Now, section 138(2) then provides that the commissioner may license any person qualified in terms of Chapter 6 and may suspend. Now, this then was to address who can apply, and I think we made it clear then who may be appointed. It should be the person that meets the requirements. And then when it comes to then the removal, because I think there is something that is a gap from the legislation. As much as we have the powers maybe to suspend or withdraw, but we do not have the powers to remove a person from being appointed as a practitioner. So even if we suspend the license, but the court still has the powers, and it's the only arbiter that can decide whether the practitioner should be removed or not. And the challenge, therefore, is that people that can then approach the court in the matters of business rescue are the affected parties. So that should be followed then in terms of section 139, in terms of the removal of the practitioner. Next slide. And then in terms of section 138, now we are looking in terms of the qualifications, as I've highlighted earlier on, and the regulation also 126 then sort of hints that the commissioner must also look in terms of the person's education, the experience that will be sufficient to equip him or her to perform. the function, and I think the underlying word from Krista was the efficient functioning of the business rescue practitioner. Now, Rosanna, are you there? Just click there. So now, Regulation 127, subsection 2C, then focuses on the classification of the business rescue practitioners. And I think it is clear that the legislatures understood that before the effective date of the Companies Act, no one had an experience in business rescue in terms of this act. And then, even though probably others might then claim that they have done this based on from other jurisdictions, but from here in South Africa, no one had that experience. And then they take into cognizance the experience that is accumulated from the turnaround. And that experience then was to be from any time before the effective date of the act. So if you are to then count your experience on turnaround, it should be the experience before the effective date. And if you are to count then your experience on business rescue, it must be business rescue in terms of the act, meaning that from 2011, then moving forward. Next slide. Right. So now we know that to apply for licensing, then the email address that we're using, it's this one, so around 126.1, it's CIPC.co.za. It is critical that people, you don't send emails to private emails or to individual emails, but to the email addresses that are dedicated for this, particularly now that we are under COVID. Other people, they don't have time to file the leave forms. If you are just a contact to a person that might be having or being declared to be COVID positive, you will have to sit at home and isolate. Then you won't have luxury to communicate. So we must use the email addresses that are accessible to people that will be assigned to attend to these email addresses. Now, we are using this email address, but we encourage people to use e-services because it's quicker, it's easier, and also it addresses what Krista highlighted, because I don't want to be a sort of a scratched record. I'm not going to repeat, but we need to use that. But for applications that had already been submitted before the 15th of June, probably there was a follow-up document, then we can use that email address. And then for filing of appointments, we can use COR 123.2 at CIPC.co.za. Also, when it comes to the licensing, we are busy uploading the information that we saved on a spreadsheet into the system, because when you are to then do the appointment, the information will be then extracted from the database. So you won't type everything, you just punch in the ID number of the person, and the system will retrieve that information and will give you even the category or the classification of the business rescue practitioner. And it will also tell you when the license is expiring. We envisage in the second phase that the system should notify the people when their licensing are about to expire, so that they know that you have to renew your license, and also other reporting tools to be part of this one. We have incorporated the renewing of license and also the request for recategorization when on the licensing part. And as soon as they are done with the licensing, then those ones will also be in place. But all queries must be submitted to our inquiries, which is on the website, as we'll normally do. And also people are encouraged, particularly the practitioners, to liaise with their professional bodies, because we have quarterly meetings, and if there are things that are new, we communicate with them so that then they share the information with their members. Next slide. Yeah, I think that's the end. And thank you so much for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Ridzani. Robert Buyani, thank you for your presentation. Ridzani, like last time, are you able to perhaps to display any questions for Krista and Buyani to answer? Krista, perhaps you can help us with this one. It's not, I think, really business rescue, but they ask, what is minutes? My friend has a company and he wants to add other participants, and they told him to bring minutes.
Thank you, Alma. I think this probably relates more to the appointment of directors. So I will defer this to Ms. Nkotla, but here's the thing about administration of your businesses. Every single, and that's a resolution. A resolution is actually a summary of the minutes of a meeting. It's the summary of it. Every decision that a company makes that impacts on how it's going to affect its operations, there has to be minutes of every meeting and right up into resolutions. So that is the confirmation that due process has been followed in coming to that specific decision or resolution by the company. I hope that helps. Fiona, do you want to provide any more clarification regarding the directorship?
All right. I thought this is for business rescue. Now I need to wear another cap. What exactly with directorship? So they can respond directly to the question.
Yeah, that's now a good question. I think let us rather move on. It seems Ridzani have another question. It says, after registering online, what is the following step?
The question is, why did you register your business? To do business. So from the CIPC side, regarding registration of the business, that's the only thing that we can talk about currently, is that after you've registered your company, we've got options for you to register your BEE certificate. You can go to, if you want to do tendering with government, you will go to the Central Suppliers Database. We automatically send the data to SASH. SASH will actually register you then for tax or general tax. If you need to get a permit, okay, so let's say, for example, you've registered your business, you are busy employing 5 people. Then you will have to go to the Department of Labour, to the Compensation Fund and Workmen's Compensation in order to register there. If you're setting up a factory, you will have to, and it's an empty premises, you will have to go to the municipality in order to have rights, etc. So it depends on why you registered your business and what type of business activities you are going to undertake as to what other steps you need to follow with other institutions, with the banks, with all these other role players that you need in order to get all your affairs in order. My apologies, there's no straight answer. There's no checklist for this.
Yes, and as you said, Krista, once you registered, one must start doing business as well. Okay, the next question, it says IPC say I cannot register my company because of my previous divorce case.
In that case, your divorce status, your marital status has got nothing to do with you running a business. In that case, please log a ticket via our online ticketing system. Provide more detail as to the reason, the tracking number where it was stated that you can't do this, or the portal, in order for a team member to actually advise you correctly. Thank you.
Okay, at least one about business rescue. The appointment of a business rescue practitioner has a grey area relating to lawyers and accountants of a company and their eligibility been resolved. Aviana, is there an answer for this? I don't know. I'm not sure whether it's a question or just a statement.
Yeah, I see it as a statement, and I'm not sure the gray area relating to lawyers and accountants. But I think when it comes to The professional bodies that can be accredited, I think the Act is clear that it should be then the professional bodies that have members in the field of legal, accounting, as well as then the business management. But I don't know how then to link the question. I think unless probably the person has an issue at hand, and maybe they want to know who must solve what. Because when it comes to the business rescue, it may be possible that they appoint a person who is strong from the legal side, but the problems are not legally, but the problems are financial. So you might need then expertise from probably accountants, or probably the problem it's management related. You might need then the person from that field. But I don't have a straight answer, because this is a statement, and if there is a question, it's not specific in terms of what is the problem that is required. But
Okay.
yes, the practitioners, they must be in a position to resolve all matters. Hence, they have to do then the investigation before confirming that indeed the company, there are reasonable prospects, and they need to be rescued through the business rescue.
Okay, thank you. Then the next question, will the business rescue application have a time of filing?
Yeah.
None of our documents and filings actually record the time. It records the day. Our legislation runs on business days. It doesn't relate to timing. So if there is a specific situation whereby there is the issuing or the initiation of liquidation proceedings is on the same day as the decision, that needs to log a ticket and provide the timelines, and we will go and double check and provide guidance. But the standard rule is we don't record on any of our applications the exact time it took effect. Remember, the legislation is very clear. It works on days.
Okay, and the next question, what is the turnaround time for business rescue practitioner licensing?
So with all the documents submitted and the filing is in order, it should not take more than 3 days. That is working days.
Okay, thank you. Next question, reference was made to a court judgment in which the distinction was made the role of the board, business rescue practitioner, and management. Which case was this? Is this the one you...
Yeah, it's the case of TIOP versus the TIOP and others versus what's this company?
Shiva, isn't it?
Shivas, yeah.
Well, one of the members of the public, actually, I think I saw him also posting the referencing for that. If you could just scroll in the comments, you'll find it there. Thank you.
Okay, please advise if one director only agrees with business rescue proceedings, how process should be followed, a court order.
Again, it depends on how many directors, active directors the company has. If there is 2 directors, active directors, and the one does not want to commence business rescue, you also have to note the consequences. If a company put to its decision making whether to go into business rescue, yes or no. If the company decides no, that also needs to be filed with the CIPC. So in the normal cases, if there are 2 directors, one do not, let me put it this way, there's a positive duty on every single director as part of their functions as a director. If the company is financially distressed and it meets the definition of distress, there's a positive duty to consider business rescue. There may be, I've not seen any case law regarding the outflow if the company decides not to commence business rescue if it's financially distressed. It may be that the directors are in conflict of their duties. So if there's 3 directors, 2 decides to resolve to opt for business rescue, 1 say nay, it's a majority decision. It's a 50% plus 1. If it's a dead bar in the middle, as I said, there may be legal consequences for the directors in not affecting or considering the matter. You probably will have to go to court, but that's sometimes unnecessary. In the 10 years that I've been dealing with business rescue, I've not come across a case whereby there was 2 directors with a deadlock as to going into business or not going into business rescue.
Yeah, I think just to add is that you have your MOI, which determines how the resolutions are arrived at. So when you say if 1, it does not necessarily address, because it may happen that there's only 1 director in the company. So we know that there is an ordinary resolution, there's a special resolution, and the MOIs, they determine the issues that are decided through this resolution. And also there is in South Africa what we call majority rule. So it will depend on the circumstances.
Okay. Then the next question, as the company industry selects and appoints with BRP, what can a BRP do to become more visible for being appointed, especially where a junior BRP is merely starting off in this field?
Yeah, so it's the same with all professions. Now, for you to be a well-known doctor, what do you do? You just graduated, then now you begin to practice. What do you do in order to be known? I think you have to market yourself. You have to do a good job so that you get referrals. All that CIPC does is that it makes it available, the professional bodies, and also the active business rescue practitioners. And it is for a company then to decide whom to appoint. And also, I think the professional bodies, they also play a huge role to ensure that the junior business rescue practitioners are empowered. We cannot then dictate how they are supposed to do that, but I think the onus is on the person in order to grow and to grow his business, and also get more exposure. And also the professional bodies, I think the reason they will belong to also, it's for them to benefit from those professional bodies.
Okay, thank you. And then what is process to renew a license?
So in terms of the new system, you go to a system under new application, it's new application, then you'll have also the renew. You just click renew because your license would have expired, and the system will tell you that the license expires on this date. Then you click, and then they submit the documents that you'll have to submit is your latest letter of good standing that you'll submit with us, and also your latest tax clearance certificate, because that is also renewable on an annual basis. So you'll have to also submit that. But the system it's very easy to follow.
Okay. Is the duty of whoever submits business rescue documents confined to ensuring that all the documents are correct? CIPC takes over thereafter with the practitioner?
The act is, Bonnie,
Chris,
maybe you go first, gentlemen.
Okay, new rules now. I thought it's ladies first. Okay, so the person that files the document, it may be the person that serves as a courier or a post office, for a lack of a better word. So there is a back office verification to ensure that the documents are indeed correct. Now, thereafter, when the company is in business rescue and the company appoints the practitioner, the practitioner then is responsible for the day-to-day running of management of the company, and that particular company also has the board, and the only sort of moratorium is on the legal, the litigations and so forth and the enforcement, but these people are responsible. And the CIPC, because of it licensed these people, and these people, they belong to a professional body, the conduct of the practitioners is very critical. And if then they conduct themselves in a manner that is unbecoming, then we refer the matter to their professional bodies so that they then begin with the disciplinary process. And then thereafter, we will take it from there. But as I've said, it is difficult for CIPC, and CIPC does not have any powers then to remove a practitioner from that particular company, because it is only the process that can be done by the courts.
Thank you very much for your honor. I knew there was a reason why I allowed you first. Just in general, for those that submit applications to the CIPC on behalf of companies, we hold you responsible for documentation being submitted to the CIPC. When we pick up a question or a concern regarding any application submitted, we're going to ask you questions first as the person that actually submitted it, because you are the duly appointed representative of the company for submitting the document to the CIPC. Also go and read the CIPC terms and conditions that we know that you customers blindly just click in order to bypass. I put up my hand. I'm sometimes also guilty if I want to just get to the processing. Go read the CIPC terms and conditions. The customer who submits is the person that we hold liable and responsible for the content submitted onto our registry. If you are unsure so therefore, as customers, when you submit on behalf of companies, you must make sure that you know what you are submitting. You must understand the Act and the requirements surrounding the document that you actually submit to the CIPC. Because if you submit false information and you knew that it was false information, it's a criminal offense in terms of the Companies Act. So always make sure that the information that you get from your clients is reliable, it looks legit. Have a few questions that you ask your clients before you submit documentation to the CIPC. Just please do not submit documentation information blindly to the CIPC. Thank you.
Okay, next question. What is the maximum number of years the practitioner should take to rescue a business? Is 10 years not too long?
There's no time that is put for a person to rescue a company, safe to say that the Companies Act or the legislatures were of the view that when the company goes to business rescue, the directors or whoever might have foresaw this in advance. And as a result of that, then they will request or require the expertise that they don't have from within to deal with this matter. And therefore, the duration that is stipulated was for 3 months, meaning that this company, the reason is in ICU, it's because of this company started by coughing and all those things. Then now it's in ICU, and in ICU, then you need this specialist. And this specialist should be able to do within 3 months. And if you are not now able to finish in 3 months, then the Act requires that there must be then monthly reports that are submitted by the practitioner that would say, I could not finish in 3 months. However, this is where I'm at, and this is the progress that I have made, and we have agreed with the affected parties that this is what we'll do on a monthly, quarterly, daily basis, and the progress has been communicated, and we are all happy as parties. Yes, it is very long. 10 years for a company under business rescue is very long, because there are others that are still waiting. Some of the things are kept in abeyance because of this. So would not want the company to be in business rescue for 10 years.
Okay, thank you. I work for several BRPs and have always worked off of one customer code. Do I now have to create profiles for each of these individuals?
So there are two things here. There's a business rescue practitioner, and the business rescue practitioner is a person that is licensed. And for that person to be licensed, then it is that person that must create his or her own profile to be licensed. So that person must register. So that person will not be registered through the customer code of Nikki Stradom, but it will be the customer code of that particular practitioner. And then the second leg now will be the appointments. So the appointment, it is the appointment of this practitioner to a company. Now, the company may enlist then the services of Nikki to say that please file this business rescue proceedings, and then thereafter here is the person that we have appointed. Then Nikki will be in a position to do that. But for the licensing, each person must then file his or her own request of licensing under his or her own customer code.
Okay. Then a question, is the process on e-services only applicable to the registration of new BR companies being registered? What is the process for the monthly call 1251 and when the BR is terminated or has ended?
All right, as indicated in the, I think it's the third page or fourth page of the slide, the current version only allows for the proceedings, the 123.1 and the court orders. The status reports, the terminations, the substantial compliance, court orders, discontinuing business rescue will come in later phases. As indicated, for now, those other matters can still go to the business rescue mailbox. Please do not copy us on every single correspondence that you're having with the affected parties, please. Literally, the mailbox is sitting at 6,000 unread emails. So please only submit the necessary documentation for processing, not minutes of meetings, sending of minutes between parties. Please keep it to the core information. Thank you.
And then are the submissions of call 1251 still to be done by emailing them to businessrescue@cipc.co.za?
All right, that's basically a duplication of the previous question, and yes, thank you.
Okay. I don't know, there are any more questions, Rudzani, or are we more or less done with the business rescue questions? I have noticed that there were many other questions which were not related to business rescue. I want to ask that you do one of two things. You either post your question on the messenger system, the inbox for the CIPC account, and not just leave it here under comments. Then somebody will respond to you, or otherwise you can log your questions or queries on the CIPC website. On the homepage, there's a button that says inquiries, just search for it, and you will choose which unit it must go to, and they will get back to you. I see there's another question with reference to coding a company as in liquidation on CIPC. What is the process after exiting of the BR rescue procedure? What information is required to register a business rescue practitioner?
Okay, I think there's two questions in there. The first one is, if the company is in liquidation, remember, if a company is in liquidation, it's only a court in terms of section 83, 84. I can't remember at the moment. My apologies for that. It's only by court order that a company or CC can exit liquidation. So you need to get a court order. If you went to court in order to switch the liquidation to business rescue, the court order must be emailed to business rescue. So what will happen from that side, they will coordinate for it to update change the one status and then forward to the department, to the next department. Please, when that happens, when there is 2 steps in your court order, because all the departments are different and have different mailboxes and different filing systems at the moment, they're not integrated. Just double check. And if you pick up that there is a misstep, please log a ticket and we'll pick it up, and then we'll check where it sort of fell through the cracks regarding the processing, and then add it and process it. Vione, I think the other question is regarding practitioners.
Zani, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry, not Rizai, Vuyani. Sorry, I keep on getting your names.
Apologies. I was talking to myself. I muted my mic. Okay. So what is happening is that on our website, you go to maintain your business, and then you'll find the business rescue, and then from there, under related, to be on your right, look for the application to be licensed as a business rescue. Then that will tell you the process.
Okay, the next question. If we do not usually file business rescue proceedings, do we need to register on the new e-services?
All right, it is only if you want to use one of the functionalities on new e-services, that's when you will register your customer code again. What is very important to note is that eventually we are going to migrate to new e-services. So the current e-services are currently in the process of being redeveloped into new e-services with enhanced functionality and data reporting for us, validations, etc. So you have to note that eventually we are going to phase out e-services and we'll be relying on new e-services. That also being said is the new e-services functionality, when everything is rolled into that same functionality will be rolled out to all the other channels that we have. For example, if the functionality is on Business Rescue, it's going to look on BIS Portal, my apology, it's going to look the same. It's going to have the same validations. That will allow us for standardization.
Okay. Then Rizani, I don't know, is there more questions we need to answer, or can we close?
I'm not sure. It's Lerato is also in the room controlling. Lerato, do you still have something?
There's one that says, is
No,
there a body
that's the
that...
last one.
Okay, the last one then is there a body that decided that the rescue needs to move to the next leg? I don't know if that is clear.
Yeah, it's not, but it will only be the court of law that then will decide apart from the practitioner. So a practitioner may decide that we don't need a rescue anymore. We have reached what we wanted to reach, or it is not possible to rescue. But if then there are people that feel that no, this company does not need to be rescued, it needs a liquidation, as Krista has mentioned, then that will be the court that will decide.
Okay, thank you, Vuyani. I think we've come to the end. If I may just say, there were quite a number of people asking where they can get the slides and whether the presentation will be available somewhere, the recording that is. So the answer to these is yes, the slides as well as a copy of a recording will be posted on our website. On the homepage, click on the button. There's a button on the right-hand side towards the middle bottom side of a page that says webinars. Click on it, it will open. Then there you must click on podcasts and presentations. The videos are called podcasts, but they are videos. So you will find it there, and we will also post the presentations there. And then they will also remain on all these social media that they were broadcast live on today. So you can always come back to Facebook or go in again on your link for YouTube. You should be able to find the videos. If you have any other questions I want to ask, as I said earlier, please log a query on the website, or otherwise ask your question on the inbox or messenger system on Facebook. Do not just leave it here under comments. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to close the webinar. I'm glad you joined us today. Future webinars will be advertised on CIPC social media and website. We hope you will join us again for any future webinars we will have. Have a great day and goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
Madam.